All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday, May 22nd. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. All right, very good. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody. Serge Berger here from thesteadytrader.com. This is our Set the Market morning call. We're going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes going through the top few things on Notepad. If you're here for the first time, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Give us a thumbs up, like. It really helps us to be able to continue to do this show. And of course, it benefits you by being able to get alerted in real time when we go live with analysis and ideas. So, top few things on my notepad today, as usual, not necessarily in order of importance, but I want to start off with this particular chart here on Bitcoin. Then we'll talk about Ethereum. We'll look at the S&P 500, which now has a very clear level for us to reference. And I do want to point out Blackstone, ticker symbol BX, which we have been highlighting for the past 3-4 months or so as something we need to watch very closely, because there's a good likelihood that private equity is in a bubble. So we'll talk about that. We'll start off with the price of Bitcoin. And if you have been watching this a little bit, you've probably noticed that Bitcoin has been breaking out, making fresh all-time highs. And so the question, of course, begs, how high could it go? So what I wanted to do here is, this is very simple technical analysis, but just know that the price of Bitcoin tends to follow liquidity in the market, and liquidity has been going up, which basically means that not only do we have a fresh deficit spending out of the US 2025 budget, but also the Chinese are stimulating, and as are the Europeans, basically, with their new fiscal spending. So we've got quite a bit of tailwind here from a liquidity perspective, and that is likely also what is going to push the price of Bitcoin higher. So this is a longer-term chart, and what I want to show you here is just where we are. We obviously broke above these previous highs in November of last year. We broke above the 70-ish thousand mark, and we've been consolidating for the past 5 months or so. So to give you some perspective on this, here's what I'm thinking. Also, I should say, Bitcoin is just another asset, so you could look at this. This is the actual price of Bitcoin, but you might look at the ETF that is ticker symbol IBIT, or any of the other ones, and we'll talk about Ethereum as well. So remember, the underlying asset for Bitcoin ETFs is always going to be Bitcoin, just like the underlying asset for an oil ETF is always going to be oil itself, and so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. That's important to be aware of. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. So I just went back to essentially 3 years now, so 2022, and since 2022, we've now had 3 periods, and now we're in the 4th period, but 3 periods where Bitcoin would consolidate for as little as 6 months, as much as 9 months. And that was subsequently led to a 25% rally on the breakouts in 2023, then a 140% breakout in late 2023 into early 2024. And then, of course, a 60% rally breakout, essentially from early November of last year to, basically December. So it was not it was like a 1 month rally. Since the end of last year, Bitcoin has now been consolidating for about 5 months. We could stretch and say it's been 6 months. So, feel free to adjust that to 6 months. So both from a just purely technical perspective of consolidating, but also in time, this is now an interesting sort of consolidation period. If this breakout here is going to be for real in Bitcoin, and I say if, because we don't know yet, the week's not over, the month is not over, right? We need more time. But if it is, then, and we have, let's say, a 25% rally from the breakout here, which was the minimum of the past 3 breakouts. If we have a 25% rally, we're getting to about 130-ish thousand, maybe 135,000 in the price of Bitcoin, right? If this rally sticks. So at the very minimum, about a 25% breakout gets Bitcoin to about 130,000. And of course, IBIT or all those other ETFs, same idea. We'll get to those ETFs in a minute. If we have a 50% rally, which would still be less than the breakout rally we had from basically last November into December, then we're getting to about 160,000 in terms of Bitcoin price. And of course, if we have even more than that, then obviously, maybe we get towards 180 or 200,000. I don't know, right? So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of mathematics here as far as, not only price analysis, but also time analysis goes. So hopefully this is helpful. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. The whole point here is to make sure that we get your questions answered. Now, you might ask yourself, what does that look like in terms of the IBIT ETF? So I'm going to switch on over and look at IBIT. So if we have a 25% rally in IBIT from the breakout point, we're looking at roughly about $75 in terms of a price target in IBIT. Okay, so that's that, IBIT. Yesterday and over in our Trade Ops members area, I posted a trade idea or just an alert letting people know that Ethereum or ETHA, you can see it right there, is the chart that I posted. ETHA could now follow the price of Bitcoin. Now, Ethereum itself is this thing here, and then we'll look at the ETHA ETF that tracks it. And so you can see we're just consolidating here basically in a bit of a consolidation period. We can get all fancy and call this whatever we want. The reality is it's consolidating. So the question is it going to move higher? So if we look at the ETF that tracks this, or one of the ETFs that tracks this, ETHA, then again, same pattern. Again, please use the underlying ETF, asset, which in this case, of course, is Ethereum. And you could imagine that this might break higher. So how much, I honestly don't know. What I personally do, and this is, again, educational here, I will typically track for at least for now, and when the rally gets more or longer, I might adapt to this. But for right now, I'm going to be using primarily the price of Bitcoin as my signal for Ethereum, because it is the primary, it's the big goat of Bitcoin, of what are they called? Cryptocurrencies, right? So I don't really have a target on Ethereum. I mean, yes, maybe fills some gaps or whatever, but I would really base this on the price action of Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin fails here, Ether or Ethereum is not going to go higher either, at least not in my analysis. So now that I have turned everyone off that doesn't like Bitcoin, let's get back to some other stuff as well. And if you guys have questions, please let me know. So that's a pretty extensive analysis. Hopefully you guys like or at least can use this Bitcoin chart here. If you need more of it, I'm going to put it inside the Trade Ops room members area, so you can watch that chart there and have it for references there as well. Now, what about stocks? The S&P 500, I'm going to make this a daily chart, yesterday left us with a important reference point that from a trading perspective, I think will be very helpful. So what we need to do is understand that yesterday's reversal, which was up there, is a new reference point. So on the SPY, it's about 595. That is the new reference point for stocks. If stocks can break above 595, then we're probably going to be in a pretty good position for the S&P to break towards, maybe certainly above 600, I would guess, but maybe to fresh all-time highs even. So if we're able to get above 595, because sellers came in yesterday around that level, and I think that's an important reference point, because the S&P's been unable, just like the NASDAQ 100 has been unable to break above this area now for the past few days. And then yesterday with bond yields breaking out, which we'll get to in a minute, that was what forced equities to mean revert back to the downside. So, for those people that want to try to be short, to be doing something on the bearish side, that's the line in the sand, 595. We can break through that today for all I know, but we may not, right? So I think that's the level that I would personally reference here very closely. So that's that. Same thing for the NASDAQ 100 to QQQ. Same thing here. So for the NASDAQ 100 to QQQ, it's the same thing here. It's basically we're looking at about 523 is the reference point. If we're able to break above there, then it's probably going to be back to all-time highs, at least for a trade. The thing I just would mention is, we live in a stagflationary environment. So the hoping and praying that everyone has that we're going to just have another 25% or 15% years to come for the S&P at these valuation levels and these levels of inflation is extremely unrealistic, right? So I know we've been warning people about this, and that's of course more of an investment question, time horizon question. But I know people are not really listening. So I just would encourage everyone to kind of do a little bit of digging and maybe understand what it means if the S&P were to just go sideways for the next 5 to 10 years. I know it seems unthinkable. Newsflash, it happens all the time. The next thing I want to talk about is Blackstone, and it is Ticker Thursday, so if you guys have some tickers you would like us to look at, please let me know. But the ticker symbol BX is shares of Blackstone. And shares of Blackstone are in a situation where they're just not acting very well, right? So the best way to show you this is probably through the market rover. So let me show to you what the trend change looks like in Blackstone. So this is a classic case of a situation where a trend change has taken place. You can see the bullish trend that began basically in the summer of 2023. The stock remained bullish. And finally, from a trending perspective, we started seeing a trend change in March of 2025. Okay? So that is a trend change, and now we actually have a bearish trend. Now, if you want to be fancy about this and you want to draw some lines on this, and you can see there may be a bear flag, sort of that's nice to know. What's way more important is that we know that we're now, at least for the time being, in a bearish trend. Okay? So this is Blackstone. Now, let's understand what Blackstone is. Okay, Blackstone is essentially a company that is involved in private equity, right? Just like KKR. And my work suggests that private equity potentially is in a bubble. It's a bit of a longer conversation. So KKR, Blackstone, there's other names too, would probably be ones that I would be watching very closely here for potentially leading signals to the downside. Bobby's asking, what about BLK? So BLK is BlackRock, right? That's a very, 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 very different situation. So BlackRock is really not at all Blackstone, right? This is not a private equity company. Blackstone, BlackRock is a very different situation. So BlackRock is a large investment manager. They have ETFs and so on and so forth. Very different situation. I'm sure they have some private equity, but that's not like their core business. So is there a bear call? Possibly, yes. I mean, I think the stock speaks for itself where it's failed, right? Again, we can use our market ruler for that as well. But it's very clear where the stock has failed. And I think a bear call here might make sense. Okay? So that's that. But let me quickly see where that is. Give me just 1 second. Okay, good. And then also RDDT is another question. So this is Reddit. When I look at Reddit, I think of momentum, right? So Reddit is a momentum stock. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that I need to use my momentum indicators. So I'm going to use RDDT, and notice that we're now getting a fresh momentum sell signal. Okay, so let me quickly show you what that looks like. So we are breaking out of a consolidation phase, and as of yesterday, we are breaking down. So you can what's important here is that we have if you're using the TST trender, we had a range, right? But now we are breaking out of that range to the downside. The stock was down 9% yesterday. To me, this is probably going to head lower, down here, maybe lower lows. I don't know. So that's what I'm thinking. And TXN, that's Texas Instruments. Well, with Texas Instruments, you have to be a little bit careful there in terms of some of the more fundamental things taking place. But what I will say, because they have a bunch of things going on, what I would say is it very much acts and looks like the S&P 500. So if the S&P struggles here, then this thing is going to go lower. If the S&P is able to break back above the signals, the levels we mentioned before, then this thing too can go higher, right? So I would watch the S&P. That would be my thing. And on the Nasdaq 100, as we said before, this is the levels. If the QQQ breaks above 523 or so, listen. For all I know, it goes back to all-time highs. But this is an important. Yesterday's intraday reversal is now an important reference point. So that's it, folks. I hope this is helpful. As always, thanks for being here. Actually, quickly, Uber. Here's a question. So we really like Uber from an investment perspective. So I should probably make this very clear and very clear. I don't look at Uber as a trading vehicle right now because I think that what this is what's happening here is a bigger story. I think they're working on a super app. So basically, what we're looking at here is a stock that, fundamentally and technically, is working on a big potential breakout with all the things that they're looking to build. And I personally think that Uber is a great investment. I don't have much trading in this name. I don't trade it. But I think as an investment, multiple quarters, possibly multiple years at least, would be the time frame that I feel comfortable with on Uber. Look, if the broader equity market pulls back again, Uber's not going to break out either. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So that's it, folks. I got to jump on a call here. Thanks for being here. Please give us a subscribe to the channel. Very important. Give us a thumbs up, like. Otherwise, we won't be able to continue the show much longer. We need to be able to make sure that the algos pick it up. And of course, the benefit for you primarily is that you get updated in real time when we go live. So we're back here Monday morning. We don't do the morning show on Friday for Friday. So we'll be back here on Monday, and we'll see all of you guys over in Trade Ops that are members in a few minutes. See you in a bit, and take care.